What's up guys, Halo Repository back today with another video. Today we are finally talking about Halo the Cole Protocol, a book I have been excited to get to, mostly just because there's a lot of things I did not remember from it. As always with these books, there's just so much information. So let's just jump right into it. Now, more than likely, this is probably going to be a two-parter similar to Contact Harvest, purely because when I was doing my notes for this book, within the first 6 chapters, I had just so many notes that I had taken. And it's just, there's a lot of information in this book. There's a lot of characters. It doesn't focus on just one person or one group. There's just so much going on, which just means I'm gonna have to make this a two-part just so I can make sure I clearly, convey all my thoughts and the story as well as possible. But with that said, let's talk about this book. So, Halo the Cole Protocol was written by Tobias S. Buckle. It was released in 2008. So just for you that don't know, in 2008, we were about 1 year after Halo 3 and 1 year before Halo 3 ODST. So we were kind of in this phantom zone with Halo, especially with, I'm pretty sure at this point we knew that as far as the mainline Halo games go, Bungie was done. They were preparing to finish off their, part in the Halo universe with ODST and Reach, and then moving on to Destiny later down the road. Now, Tobias S. Buckle is, I believe this is his first novel within the Halo universe. If not, I'll double check, but it's not his last. He definitely shows up in some other stuff, specifically Halo Envoy, which acts as kind of a sequel to Halo the Cole Protocol, but that takes place way down the road, and I can't wait to talk about that one with you guys as well. So let's talk about the cover. Let me just say it all right. This cover was designed by the legend Isaac Hannaford. It pretty much just shows what I believe to be Jai 006 on the cover, right in front of the rubble with the gas giant just behind it. There's really not much to say about this cover other than that it's really cool, and I think it's one of those more unique looking covers, especially for the Halo universe. I actually have 2 copies of it right here with me so you can get a better look, and of course I will show a full picture of it right here on the screen for you. But yes, you can see Jai 006 on the front cover with his Mjolnir armor, a BR-55 battle rifle, and what exactly is the rubble in the background. Overall, this is a fantastic cover. I think it's one of my favorites from the original covers. I think the original Halo covers probably were some of the most peak covers we have out there. But, we'll talk more about different covers later on in different videos. Now, one very interesting thing I will say about this is when I first saw this cover, it looks to me like Noble 6. Like, the armor is very Halo Reach-esque. The helmet itself is pretty unique because it looks like the Mark 5B. But when I was doing some research, of course, this book came out in 2008, which also meant that the cover was probably, made in either 2008 or 2007, well before Halo Reach and Noble 6 probably were even completely made or even talked about. So I was really curious as to what this armor was. And when doing a little bit of research, it appears to be kind of inspired by, Isaac Hannaford's concept art for the Mjolnir Mark V, and I'll show a picture of what I mean right here. Of course, the armor itself is the Mark IV armor, but this helmet it looks on this cover at the very least like a Mark V that Noble 6 wears in Halo Reach, but it's not. It's Mark V. It's a concept piece. I think it looks cool, but of course, later down the road, they completely changed Jai's armor, but without that, we wouldn't be here. So one thing that I don't think I really talked about with Contact Harvest, which I'm going to talk about right now with the Cole Protocol, is the variations in books. And what I mean by that is, as I just showed you, I have another copy of the book right here. The difference is as you can see, this is almost a night and day look. And what I mean by that is, obviously you're probably looking at it looks the exact same, but obviously fonts have changed. The original Halo badge that's on the very top of these books got slimmed down just to purely saying Halo. None of the cool Forerunner-esque designs in the background. The back of the book is completely different. This is mostly just all black with a slight faded version of the cover, whereas this one is a zoomed up close of Jai 006 with the description of the book. And then the sides are also very different. It feels like when they re-release these under 343, they kind of lost this very unique Halo-esque design. And it also could be because of the different change in publishers. Back during Bungie, we had Tor. Like, this was the people who were pretty much publishing all the Halo books. And then you swap over to Gallery Books with these ones. The cover's more matted. The, OG Bungie style Halo is very much, gone. It's very just uniform, and I don't typically like it. I do like the way the covers feel. I know that's a weird thing to say, but I do feel like these have a nicer feel. The glossy is nice, but it also ages a little bit worse in my opinion. This book is really old. This is like a first edition, whereas this one's only, for me, a couple weeks old. Now we'll talk about different variations in book covers and book designs and all that kind of stuff with the release of, the Halo The Fall of Reach re-release coming out later this year. But also we'll talk about that even with things like very recently Meridian Divide and Battleborn, which are our next videos. So let us finally talk about the contents of this book. So this book takes place, even though it doesn't say on the original back, okay, it just says, in the first desperate days of the Human Covenant War, while this newer release says 2535. There is no real date specifications in the original copy. Most of the chapters just give you like system names. For example, this book takes place mostly in 23 Libri system. Like, that is just the name of the system in which the book majority of the time takes place. Whereas this one immediately starts off with 2535. So we're about 9-ish years after Halo Oblivion. So we start off in 2535 on the Rubble. The Rubble, if you've seen the Halo TV show, basically think about where Sorn 066 lives on those, like, basically it's a bunch of space stations built into various asteroids and meteors, all connected through, like, structures and tubings that allow them to travel in between different asteroids. It's pretty much that. I'll show pictures of it right here on the screen so you can get a better idea of that. But we start off on the Rubble with two of our main characters. We have Ignacio Delgado and Malco Hollister. Now, these two men are pretty much making a run for it. At first, we don't know why, but they seem to being hunted by something. And it turns out they're being hunted by 3 jackals. Why? Because Delgado and Malco have a very rare thing in their possession: nav data. So in the Rubble, they've pretty much have been finding out a lot of their nav data has been wiped. They no longer have navigational data to different planets within the outer, inner colonies, and specifically Earth. It seems all this data has just disappeared. And now this nav chip that Delgado and Malco have is the last piece of nav data in the entire Rubble. And they've been charged by the Security Council to basically get it to safety, get it somewhere where no one will be able to find it. That way they can prevent it from being also erased like the other nav data systems within the Rubble. Now, Delgado and Malco are really close friends and co-pilots. They're trying to make it to their ship, the Distancia, so that way they can get the nav data off the Rubble and to safety. But as they're making their way, they kind of get into a point where they're surrounded by these 3 jackals. And Delgado makes a kind of last stand effort and says, Malco, you get out of here with the nav data. I'll stay back here and try to like fend them off. And basically Malco, of course tries to say, no, don't do that, but it's the only way. And with that, Malco makes a run for it with the nav data. But as he gets to the ship, he does get fired upon. He is able to get on the ship and lock it and basically get the ship to move, basically escaping with the nav data and leaving Delgado to die. And so as these 3 jackals are closing in on Delgado, just moments before he thinks he himself is about to get killed, a Spartan shows up and takes out the 3 jackals. The Spartan then comes up to Delgado and pretty much says, hey, where did you send that nav data? And Delgado's like, you're never gonna get anything out of me, copper. And normally in these types of situations, being the fact that the Rubble is a, like I said, a conglomerate of space stations amongst all these asteroids, it's kind of pretty obvious that they're left to their own devices. They're not really seen by the UNSC. And we later learned that the UNSC doesn't even know the Rubble exists. And when they do come and, discover this, they are amazed by it. But at the same time, this pretty much means that these are people who are refugees, and they are refugees from the planet of Madrigal, which is also not a place that really welcomes the UNSC. So for Delgado to pretty much be defiant to this Spartan, this legendary insurrectionist, murderer, that's how they see him, of course, it's pretty brave. And what happens next is I don't think what you would expect. The Spartan gets down, takes off their helmet, and it's revealed to be a woman known as Adriana 111. And she gives medical care to Delgado, who had also gotten injured, not as bad, but had gotten shot by one of the jackals. And she provides first aid, asks him again where the nav data is, and he still won't tell her. So she kind of goes, okay, gives him a beacon saying, well, if you ever want to turn it over to us, use this beacon and we'll find you. And with that, she gets up, tells him to never speak of her or anyone's existence about her, and she leaves. And that's where the prologue ends. We then cut to our first chapter with our sweet boy, Lieutenant Jacob Keyes, who has awoken on the UNSC Armageddon's Edge from cryo. We kind of learn that, first off, this is our first time seeing Keyes in the books, at least, since he was with Halsey to go and basically scout John 117. And what's cool about this is, we've learned that in the, 18 years that it's been since we last saw Keyes, he's been on a variety of missions, ships, and in one of those previous ships, he had gotten injured trying to fend off the Covenant, and that injury led him to being medically discharged, and then he became a pilot instructor on the moon, also known as Luna. Now, Keyes is ambitious. He wants to get back in the game. At the same time, he is worried about getting back in the game because back home he has his daughter. He has Miranda Keyes, which is, again, our first time getting a mention of her in these books. But Keyes is very much a great father. He cares about Miranda. He's training her. He's teaching her. He is the exact figure he needs to be for her that Halsey ultimately knew she wouldn't be, which we'll get more into in a later book as well. But overall, Keyes wants back in the game. And he's kind of hoping that for some reason he has been summoned to this planet known as Chi-Ro. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'll put the name right here on the cover for you. But he's been summoned to this planet and he doesn't know why. He's being told that it's for more pilot training, but he doesn't believe that to be true. Arriving on the planet, Keyes makes his way to Camp Patmos. Now, while he's on the planet, he sees massive groups of refugees and learns that there is just a very serious refugee problem going on in the outer colonies. And most of the people in the inner colonies, specifically Earth, don't know or don't care about this. And this kind of angers Keyes because for him, it's at this point in the war, we're facing one of the biggest threats to our species that we need to forget all the bad blood we've had in the past. We need to work together. We need to help these people so that way they can help us and thereby we can win this war. But for now, there's nothing Keyes can do about it. Now, when Keyes gets to this camp, he meets Vice Admiral Mawakes, and Mawakes pretty much hands over the official Cole Protocol. The Cole Protocol is still relatively new, but it's been making its way through the UNSC, and this is Keyes' first time seeing it. I'll put kind of a picture of what it entails, but realistically, all you need to know is it's exactly what we've heard from Halo Combat Evolved.
I'm initiating Cole Protocol Article 2. We're abandoning the Autumn. That means you too, Cortana.
While you do what? Go down with the ship?
In a manner of speaking. The object we found, I'm gonna try and land the Autumn on it.
With all due respect, sir, this war has enough dead heroes.
I appreciate your concern, Cortana, but it's not up to me. Protocol is clear. Destruction or capture of a shipboard AI is absolutely unacceptable, and that means you're leaving ship.
It is essentially a protocol that is protecting Earth and her colonies and any other secrets that may hold within a certain nav data or any other systems that are aboard UNSC ships. This essentially means that if the Covenant is detected in a system, immediately the Cole Protocol needs to be activated, thereby deleting any information regarding Earth's location, any of the inner colony locations, weapon deployments, Earth, all this kind of stuff. I know I said Earth, but that's the main importance of this protocol is to protect Earth's location. It also means that if you are on a board a ship and you want to escape the Covenant, you cannot go to a predetermined set of coordinates. You have to throw in random coordinates that at the very least is in a very opposite direction of Earth and go there first and make random slip space jumps until you can determine that you have successfully escaped. Then you can return to probably not Earth, but like an inner colony, maybe even outer colony, and go from there. Vice Admiral Malba Keyes basically tells Jacob Keyes that, hey, we have a brand new prototype stealth frigate known as the Midsummer's Night. We want to test it, basically going around different areas and wiping nav data, because this is very important. Not everyone is going to do it, specifically those that are not in the UNSC. They're going to see it as a UNSC order, but not a me who's not in the UNSC order, so I'm not going to do it. So he's basically charging Keyes to go around with this ship with specific people such as Major Watanabe, who is from ONI, and the actual commander of this ship, commander known as Dmitry Zing. We learned that Keyes isn't being asked to lead the charge, but to help it. He's aboard the command bridge. He is a locations officer and all this kind of stuff. He's just supporting the team. He's not commanding, but it's enough for Keyes to take it because he's back in the game. Back on the rubble, we learned that Malco died. He had, as I said, sustained a wound from the Jackals, and even though he made it to the Distancia, he pretty much just bled out and he passed away on this ship. Now they're holding a funeral where Delgado meets with two of his other closest friends, a man by the name of Diego, who was a part of the Security Council, again, the ones who had essentially told Delgado and Malco, hey, this is nav data, get it to safety. And he also meets with another close friend known as Maria. Delgado pretty much brings up that he's concerned with how easily him and Malco were discovered. He's worried that there might be a leak aboard the Security Council, because how else would the Jackals have quickly known that Diego and Malco had nav data? And this data is obviously going to be very important to the Covenant because it basically allows them to find the human homeworld. And when Delgado raises these concerns, Diego kind of goes, it's unlikely there's any real leaks. I mean, there's a possibility with this guy named Peter Bonifacio, because he does deal with the Jackals, and we kind of learn that the Jackals are welcomed on the rubble. They've basically been trading with the Jackals, so it's kind of like a mutually beneficial relationship that Bonifacio has been a part of. And it's kind of where it's like throwing the red flag, but you as the reader is going to go, it's clearly this dude, but the characters in the book are like, nah, it couldn't be. He loves the rubble. But we do learn from Diego that the Security Council is really considering giving the nav data to the Jackals, because to them, why protect Earth? Who cares? Like, Earth hates us and we hate them. They weren't there for us when Madrigal fell, so why should we care about them? And it just kind of leads into this whole thing of like, we're clearly still in this era of the insurrectionists, or at least the outer colonies, hating Earth, and people still just turning on each other, which really does suck at this point. Like, again, it's been 10 years since this war started, and we still have this like bad blood between these two groups. Either way, we switch over to Jacob Keyes, who is being deployed onto a merchant ship from the Midsummer's Night, along with a group of ODSTs. They get on this ship and pretty much are like asking this crew like what they're doing, what they're transferring. We need access to your nav data to wipe it. And this crew very much are anti-UNSC people, because they're calling them fascists. They're like basically spitting on them. We don't gotta do nothing. You're not our bosses. And while Keyes is sitting there just like, getting yelled at and not caring because he's so used to it at this point, one of these shipping containers explodes. Waking up, Keyes is a little dazed. He has a concussion and he's trying to figure out what the hell just happened. And so getting up, he sees some dead soldiers around him, some dead merchant people around him. And he finds out from one of the ODSTs that their commander, known as Faison, has pretty much started telling his ODSTs to start scoping the ship for any insurrectionists, try to figure out who's detonating these bombs, all this kind of stuff. But Keyes finds out that one of the, someone's beacon within their group is going off and is now summoning the Midsummer's Night to come and extract them. Keyes recognizes that this is an issue because clearly the goal for this merchant ship is to blow up the Midsummer's Night. And if the ship gets closer, they'll detonate the ship completely, killing everyone aboard, both the merchant ship and probably severely damaging and or destroying the Midsummer's Night. So Keyes barks at Phazon to, get back to their the hangar bay. And at first Phazon's like, "Sorry, bud, you're Navy. I'm the Marines. I don't have to listen to you." But Keyes says, "I'm pulling Rake. Get your ass back here right now. Like, we need to figure this out." And Phazon at first, really, you can tell he does not like Keyes. He hates being given orders by both someone who's not technically within his branch of superiority, but it still holds a higher rank within the UNSC. So he does come back, he does listen to Keyes, and Keyes' goal or plan is to get all injured ODSTs and whoever else into one of these containers that are, they're safe to go in space. They're gonna then blow a hole into the hole to get sucked out, and ODST gear is, space safe for about 45 minutes to an hour, so they're able to use that time to try and get closer to the Midsummer's Night, inhale it, and say, "Do not get close to this ship." Because from within this ship, they can't get contact out, so they got to get closer. Keyes gets on an ODST suit. He goes out first so he can use a battle rifle to propel himself closer to the Midsummer's Night and basically hail it and say, "Do not get close. It's a trap. It's a trap." But as he's doing this, the merchant ship explodes. And for a brief moment, Keyes believes that every other ODST and those inside the shipping container died. Before we can figure out what happened, though, we do finally switch back to Delgado, who is back on the Rebel, and he's investigating a ship known as the Kestrel. Why? Because it sounds like the Kestrel is now one other possible ship that has nav data, which makes it of high importance. But there also seems to be this secrecy around the Kestrel. People don't want to talk about it. They're afraid to talk about it. And so when Delgado goes to a bar and starts asking around, one guy says, "Hey, be careful what you're asking, but I will say that person over there, that really tall woman, has also been asking the same questions." Delgado goes, "Oh, okay, let me go see why she's asking questions." He makes his way over and recognizes Spartan Adriana 111, who is out of armor, but very clearly not a normal human being because she's so tall. Anyways, as Delgado gets over there and reunites with Adriana, a group of men come over to her table with Delgado and look her in the eyes and say, "You need to stop asking questions. You're barking up the wrong tree." And she, being a Spartan, goes, "Do something about it." So they do. They start attacking her. But of course, again, she's a Spartan. This is light work for her. But it does get to the point where the entire bar is now breaking out and trying to fight her, and through her, Delgado as well. So fortunate enough for her, as she's fighting them off, another Spartan comes bashing through one of the walls and basically extracts Adriana and Delgado. Aboard this new ship, Delgado meets his saviors, his rescuers. Of course, we have Adriana 111, who is this Spartan who's pretty much just in civilian clothes. We meet Michael 120, who is the team's resident tech expert. And we meet Jai 006. And what I love about Jai is he literally introduces himself as Jai 006. And I think that's just so cool, because I think at the time I was really invested in some James Bond 007 movies and content. So when he said that, I was like, but oddly enough, there seems to be a slight trust going on between Adriana and Delgado, because the rest of the team, who introduced themselves as Gray Team, kind of give Delgado a little bit inside track as to why they're here. They're here for the nav data, and they basically are one of many teams that are sent into Outer Colony Covenant controlled space to basically do these backwater undercover operations. And right now they need that nav data. So it's a lot of information to tell someone that even Jai himself says he doesn't fully trust. Once again, they still ask Jai or Delgado for the nav data, and he's still not willing to turn it over because they are UNSC. They are this operative Spartan group that he doesn't know he can trust. Again, they don't really press him on the matter, and they let him leave. As he leaves, we get kind of an internal dialogue about Jai 006 and the rest of Gray Team. From Jai's perspective, he remembers being kidnapped. He remembers getting to Reach as a kid, and he remembers always trying to escape. And he kept meeting Adriana. Him and Adriana would escape at least frequently, maybe every night or maybe just occasionally every week. But they were doing it to the point where even Halsey finally sat each of them down separately and gave them a choice. She said, hey, you have the ability to stay here and become, a Spartan, to mean something, to do something greater than yourself. Or if you really want to go back home, the next time you escape and you get to a certain clearing where my men can see you running in a field, they will shoot you with a sleeping dart, but that sleeping dart will also be infused with like a memory wiping drug. And every memory he's had, Jai and Adriana have had about Reach and the Spartan 2 program will be wiped. And they will be they'll waken up back home on their home planets. The problem? Halsey pretty much tells Jai straight up like, hey, no one knows you're gone. And if they do, they don't care. No one's looking for you. No one's reacting. It's like you were a ghost that just disappeared and they could care less. Here, you have a family. You have a team. You matter. And I want you to continue to matter and become bigger than yourself. So the next night, Jai and Adriana escape. But just as they're going to reach this clearing where their lives can be completely altered or they can stay and become Spartans, they both stop and just sit and talk to each other. And ultimately decide to go back and stay as Spartans. And with that, they're both paired with Michael 120, who at first, again, you're like, well, what did Mike do? Why is he paired with the Grey Team? Turns out he stole or hacked a Pelican, tried to escape with it, and then when he got caught, he detonated. Again, this is like a 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid who just hacked a Pelican and said, nanner, nanner. So this is where Grey Team was formed. These three were paired together. They became their own unit within the Spartan 2 program. And since then, they've kind of just operated together outside of like the mainline Spartans like we've seen in other books and media. Now, that's a long-winded way of saying that Jai has unconditional trust in Adriana. He is hesitant to let Delgado go, but he knows he can trust Adriana's judgment. So for the moment being, he lets it happen. But as he's letting this happen, Mike warns Jai that like, hey, we're getting hacked. Don't know where the source is coming from, but we have to do something to stop it. And so they shut down the power of the ship, wait a few minutes, and then repower the ship on, hoping it prevented anything from happening. And at first, when they think that they succeeded, a AI appears in the ship, known as Juliana. Now, Juliana, we come to find out, is both a very aging AI. She's on the cusp of rampancy, but she's also like the person in control of the rubble. Like, she runs its operations. Think of like Sif back in Contact Harvest, who runs the Tiara for Harvest, and Mac, who runs pretty much all of the farming and agricultural operations of Harvest. Sif runs the rubble. And she's known about the Spartans for a while, but she's not here to like warn them or threaten them. She's here to ask for their help. She knows she's about to die. She knows the rubble is in danger, and she needs their help to save it. And if they help her, she will help them get the nav data they have been longing for. So they agree to help. We now switch over to the main character of this book, Captain Del Rio. Wait.
Lieutenant! Arrest that man!
Captain!
Arrest him!
Captain!
No, in reality, we're switching over to Thel 'Vadamee. It's also kind of why I'm wearing this Halo 2 shirt. On the back of it is our lovely Arbiter. The fact that we're getting Arbiter content is so cool to me. Obviously, this takes place after Halo 3, so it's not that crazy. But what's cool about this book is we get a younger Thel 'Vadamee, a man or a Sangheili who has not become, obviously, the Arbiter yet. He won't be an Arbiter for like another, 17 years. And at this point in life, he has just been nominated and basically declared Khaidon of the Keep of Vadam. And this is his clan, his tribe on Sanghelios. He has just become the leader.
Thel 'Vadamee was born of noble blood, the legendary House of Vada.
His family's renown demanded great expectations for his military career, and he would meet them all. One of the youngest to achieve the status of shipmaster, and one of the youngest to gain the rank of Supreme Commander. In our campaign against the humans, few have risen to renown.
Now what we learned though is that it's very normal and it's a time to honor tradition amongst the Sangheili for someone to become Kaidan, that there's going to be those who doubt them, who don't agree that this single Sangheili should be our leader. And they are welcome to send assassins to try, or even try and assassinate them themselves, but they can send assassins to kill the Kaidan or the Kaidan elect. That way they can basically say like, look, see, he was weak. We need better leadership for our team or our clan. So as Vel is waiting, 3 Sangheili assassins enter his keep and he wipes the floor with them. He very easily neutralizes all 3 of these. Afterwards, he turns to his guards and says, summon the elders. I need to root out who sent these assassins, because the elders are the ones who send the assassins. These are the ones who, they vote on whether this person should become Kaidan, but they can also send assassins if they doubt them. When the elders arrive to his keep, he comes in his robe and he takes it off. He's naked in front of his elders and they're all kind of like taken aback by it. And Thel says, someone has sent an assassin after me. Someone has doubted me. But look, there's not a scratch on my body. They couldn't even touch me. So who wants to own up to this? And no one really says anything, but then Thel looks to a Sangheili elder known as Koda Vadam. And he can tell by the way Koda looks uncomfortable, nerved, that Koda was the one that sent them. So he says it straight up, like, should have known it was you, Koda, because Koda's not really related to Thel. Yes, they're both from the same tribe, but as you know with Sangheili customs, they don't know their fathers. No Sangheili knows their dad. They only know their uncles. And most of these elders are actually Thel's uncles. It doesn't really mean anything. It just means that he has them as uncles, and a lot of them have trained him and mentored him. But Koda's not one of them. He's more of just like a distant, probably cousin or something like that. And you can tell Vel doesn't like him. So he kills him, and he says all of Koda's line, every family member within Koda's line, wife, kids, grandkids, whatever, grandpa, dad, needs to get the hell out of my tribe. Like, they have to leave. And if they're not gone by a certain time, execute them. It's like the coldest thing I've ever seen from Vel Vadamir. I feel like when you get into the games, he's still cold, but he's very tampered. Now, of course, that's a difference in 17 years and writing at the time, but it's very much a cold Sangheili-esque, and I really enjoy it. Anyways, after killing Koda, Thel pretty much says, like, all right, as y'all know, I have Vadamir, E at the end of my name. I am an officer of the Covenant. Koda doubted me because I was gone fighting other things, fighting humanity, fighting Khagar. He doubted my ability to fight Sangheili. No one will ever doubt me again. And they all kind of agree to this. And he says, I'm being sent to a human planet known as Charybdis 9 to kill off the planet's inhabitants and glass it. This order comes from the hierarchs. So I will be leaving with my fleet, and you all are in charge of my keep until I get back. Is that understood? They're like, yep, sounds good, man. And so with that, he leaves. Back aboard the Midsummer's Night, though, Keyes is happy to find out that most of the ODSTs did survive. A good number of them did perish in the explosion, but he was able to save a lot of lives with his quick thinking. It actually ends up leading him to being jumped by Phazon, I don't know how to say his name, I'm just gonna keep saying whatever. Phazon and his ODSTs, and they make it seem like they're gonna jump him and beat him up, but in reality, they tattoo him with a kanji character that pretty much represents, jackass or badass. It depends on how you see it. But essentially, they kind of in a way make him an honorary ODST, essentially saying if he ever needs help, the ODSTs are there for him. It's a really good moment for him. But with that, they're also going to Charybdis 9, this entire ship. And the reason why is they discover that the Covenant is dealing Covenant weapons to human like insurrectionists on this planet. They don't know why. They fear that there's a new plan to start putting trackers on Covenant technology. That way when humanity either scavenges it like they've been doing, or when they sell it like they're going to do with the insurrectionists on Charybdis 9, they're able to track those weapons back to Earth or any other major inner colony. So, with the Cole Protocol in effect, Midsummer's Night's going to go to this planet, figure out what's going on, get these weapons, and prevent them from exposing humanity from the Covenant. Arriving on the planet, Keyes and Major Watanabe, the Oni agent, or the Oni officer, meet with an Oni agent known as Corinthia Hansen. Hansen's pretty much an undercover arms dealer. She's acting as if she's here just to sell weapons. I don't remember, I'll have to look at it, but they do somehow get, in possession of the Covenant weapons, and now we're going to pretend to sell these weapons to the insurrectionists. And everything's kind of going off without a hitch, They get down to the surface of the planet, they get inside of a mobile command center that's disguised as a truck, they take the weapons to a meeting point that's within the city that is actually going through like a bit of a rebellion or like a mob. The city's known as Cillian. And they're pretty much rebelling over corporate greed that's been leading to food shortages and all this type of stuff. So there's a lot of like hyped up emotions, anger, violence going on this planet. And so it's a little sketchy at first trying to do this mission. Inside the mobile command center, Keyes and Watanabe watch as Hansen gets out and starts to engage with insurrectionists, specifically an insurrectionist known as Kincaid. Now, Jason Kincaid he's pretty much only seen in this book as far as our journey goes, but the name sounds really familiar. I have to look into more of why that is. I think he shows up somewhere else, but I don't believe he's a super major character. What's important to know is while him and Hansen are having like this arms deal, the mob starts to get closer and closer to their location, to the point where the other, Oni agents that are in the vicinity are kind of like warning Hansen, like, hey, like, you might need to bug out. This is getting too sketch. And so she switches this from a fake arms deal to basically an arrest. So since Kincaid was not expecting it, the Oni agents quickly turn around and just start, apprehending these insurrectionists. And they're able to get them all aboard the command center, detained. But as they're getting ready to leave, the mob arrives and they see this like arrest go down and start attacking the truck and even shooting it with an RPG. Before we can see what happens though, we go back to the rubble where Delgado is apprehended by none other than Peter Bonifacio. Bonifacio pretty much just takes, Delgado in and says, hey, I kind of need that nav data. And, he's like, I have clearance from the security. Like, we all agree that we need you to hand it over. And Delgado's still pretty much adamant about not handing it over. He doesn't trust Bonifacio. We learned that from earlier. And Delgado pretty much says, like, it is strange that the Jackals found you. It is strange that somehow this information leaked. Do you know how that happened, Delgado? And basically what Bonifacio is trying to do is turn the tables on Delgado, basically trying to insinuate that Delgado is the leak, the traitor. And this all but pretty much confirms that Bonifacio is in fact, the jackass. And we learn that Bonifacio really wants to trade more with the Covenant. He's sending the Kestrel in to get the luxury items aboard so that way he can sell them at premium prices to people on the rubble. But you can kind of tell that there's a greater plot afoot here that we just aren't getting yet. But this chapter pretty much all but confirms that Bonifacio is up to something. He's definitely the leak. But what is the greater plan here? We then cut back to Keyes, Watanabe, and Hansen, who awaken. They survived. The truck was severely damaged, that it's not usable. And Kincaid and some of his insurrectionists were able to get free and escape. So as these three officers get off this command center, they look out and they are surrounded by like a mob. Kincaid, who now has a plasma rifle, and other insurrectionists. So the three escape to the closest building and use basically like the fire escape, or not the fire escape, but the internal stairs to make their way to the rooftop. Keyes has had this pilot known as Jeffries with him ever since the beginning of the book, when he got to the camp and, got the whole mission. He asked for Jeffries to be transferred to the Midsummer's Night because he liked how ballsy he was. Like, as a pilot, he did very dangerous maneuvers, but they were quick, efficient, and perfected, that like you can tell that this was a pilot who knew what he was doing, and Keyes liked it enough to have him transferred. So here, when they get to this rooftop, Keyes radios Jeffries to come pick them up and extract them. But as Jeffries is making his way to the building, an RPG shoots him down, causing the Pelican to crash, and that's it. That's kind of like the reason why I didn't really even mention Jeffries earlier. I felt like he was going to be an important character, but he dies off so fast and does so little that I was kind of like, oh, okay. So with that, Keyes then radios the Midsummer's Night saying like, we need help now. And the ODSTs answer saying, hey, we got you. Be there in 20 minutes. And they're like, 20? Are you serious, dog? And so as time goes by, like within 10 minutes, the insurrectionists know where these three officers went, but they're not really moving forward. They're inside the same staircase, but they're not going up. They're staying at a safe distance. Hansen's sitting there with like a magnum shooting down there every now and then, just pot shots trying to keep them from, wanting to come up. And that's when she looks at Keyes and Watanabe and says, check the sides of the building, because there are like fire escape stairs. And so as both Keyes and Watanabe are checking their sides, three insurrectionists, Kincaid included, come up the side Watanabe's checking, quickly like take her out. Like they kill her, and they kind of for a brief moment like prevent Hansen from doing anything else. Fortunate enough, Keyes is able to get in there real quick, place a few well shots, and kills Kincaid and the other insurrectionists. While this is happening, the ODSTs finally arrive. They come landing down on the building and quickly get out of their pods with snipers and just start sniping all these RPGs. And quick and efficiently, like you can tell this is a unit has worked together. They know what they're doing. Once all the RPGs are there, they then quickly summon two Pelicans to come down, extract the team. On board the Pelican, Hansen turns to Keyes and says like, hey, there's a ship called the Kestrel that has nav data. It's also one of the ships that's also going to do another weapons run for the Covenant. You need to find it and pretty much take it out. And Keyes is like, okay, we should do that. That is until the Covenant forces start to arrive at the same planet. And now Keyes is kind of in a moral dilemma. Do we go after the Kestrel and prevent these weapons from being sold? Or do we stay here and fight the Covenant and protect this planet? Ultimately, it's not his decision, but it is something he's thinking about. Like, do we abandon these people or do we go after the Kestrel? And with that, we're going to end this part of the video. That does kind of lead us into part 2 of the book. Kind of a little bit. Part 2 really started with Peter Bonifacio apprehending Delgado. But like I said, that was the first 20 chapters, and there are over 70 chapters in this book. Fortunately, at the very end of the book, the chapters start to get like within 1 to 2 pages. So even though it sounds like a lot of chapters, they're literally like brief chapters, that it's fine. But it also does mean that there's so much more I have to talk about. I want to make sure I'm not, creating a 3-hour-long video and also making it a hell of a time for me to edit. So with that, we're going to cut off right here. I will return with part 2, similar to Contact Harvest. It will come out within a couple of days of the release of part 1. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.